power to laugh is it's not a gift, man. It's a trust. It's a community ideal. To be able to put people in a room and talk about some of the most difficult of things, painful, hurtful things, but yet congeal an environment whereby people can see their own humanity, show compassion, and show mercy. Civil liberties attorney Clarence Darrow also said when it came to humor, if you lose the power to laugh, you lose the power to think. With that, I present the End of Racism Comedy Lecture Tour Virtual Edition.
I think racism is the reason why you never ever see any black people in tanning commercials. You're laughing, but if you went to the local pharmacy, you saw a cardboard cutout of me with some suntan lotion, you'd be confused. It's a killer. They don't tell you this. It affects everybody. Guess what? Racism affects white people too. But they don't tell you. That's why I'm here. Work with me here. Black people got Black History Month. I'm Muslim. Muslims have Ramadan. Latinos have Latino month. Asians have. What do my white brothers and sisters have? Nothing. You don't have a Caucasian Awareness Month or Black Appreciation Day or a White Day or a Coffee Day or Rich Month or Hopefully Every Help or Pale Cause. Nothing. Put out your right hand. Stand 5 fingers. I call this the fives. It's about thinking about language. Freedom. I believe there's always 5 letters to let us know just how close we are. 5 letters. Think outside the box. Here we go. You can count on the board. 5 letters. I believe we all exist. EXIST. Here on Earth, 5 letters by virtue of the fact we're all human nature remain. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you're black 5 letters, white 5 letters, Asian 5 letters, or Latino, Latina, like the older A stuff. Ain't true. I'm Muslim, you know, that means I follow Islam, that's 5 letters. If you Christian follow Jesus, if you're Jewish, you get 4 or 5 letters too. The point of this is, as good as the sound is always going to be hate, and it's 5 letters too. Because our power lies in our unity, UNITY. And a hater, you know how a hater is. Most of them are angry, some of them are upset, some of them pissed off right now because damn it, they can't SPELL, and it's okay. So, hey, listen, man, if you can't spell it out, do the math. If you take 3 things away from the 5, here's your peace. And that peace is spelled P-E-A-C-E.
I proudly present the End of Racism Comedy Lecture Tour Virtual Edition, coming to a college near you. Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you'll know when you're getting new episodes, and we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The ShOUT Show.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Miles, host of the SOS. Thank you so much for joining us on our Saturday Spotlight. We got a good one here, brothers and sisters. I've been threatening you guys with great talent and great guests, and today that threat has come to fruition. I'm not even going to be hosting the show today. It's Stars in the Building. That's what it is. The Stars in the Building. Stars with our hosts, stars with our guests. We're going to be talking about the whole Muslim Green Initiative thing. I'm talking about the real Muslim Green Initiative, not when somebody has on the same outfit you have during Eid. I'm talking about a different kind of green. So I got to go. I'm going to turn this over, alhamdulillah. We got people in the shout-out box. I'm going to give you quick shout-outs. Sister Aika all the way from Indonesia. Yes, thank you for coming. Altaf, all the way from Toronto. Thank you for coming. And Sister Reed, what's up with the cooking? You fell off on your craft services, but it's all love. It's all love. But my point is, if you have questions, brothers and sisters, you need to get your questions ready because we have an expert. We have somebody who's dedicated their life strength to talk about this whole thing about climate change and green initiatives. So, stars in the building alert. I've been telling y'all about Sister Satana. Today is the Preacher Moss Shut Up and Get Out of the Way Day. Preacher Moss Shut Up and Get Out of the Way Day. So I'm going to bring the sister to the screen. I'm going to say hello, give her a slams, and I'm going to keep it moving. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to our Saturday Spotlight featuring Sister Nana Firman. Alhamdulillah, let's get this thing cracking. What's going on, sister? You got to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. There you go.
That is like step 101.
There you go. It's all right. Look, I'm ready to rock. I'm ready to get out of here. I want to hear about green climate. I want to be able to impress my family and friends. I just want to say the word green a little bit and have it not mean spinach or money.
Oh, wow.
I want to get in, and this is your guest. So I will be happily stepping back. I have I've done a little research on Sister Firman, but you know what? That has nothing to do with me. I might have some questions later. Right now, this is your show.
All right.
I would like to, without further ado, if you don't mind, let me move this box over to the side, bring our sister on, and ladies and gentlemen, this is the Shout Out Show with Sister Satana Whitfield. Good enough?
We're good. Thank you.
How you doing?
Wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum. Sister Nana, how are you?
Wa alaikum assalam. I'm okay. I'm doing good. Here in California. We just experienced like a big heavy wind just 2 days ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. So let me just welcome everyone to the Shout Out Show with Preacher Moss. This is a daily show that runs at this time. Of course, I am not Preacher Moss. I am Satana Whitfield, Sister Satana. I'm actually one of the consulting producers on the show. And as Preacher said, he's been threatening to have me move up into the front and do some hosting, and it is here. So actually, I'm excited because we do have an amazing guest today. But again, we welcomed some of the regulars on already. I see my sister Shay is on the line. Wa alaikum assalam, Shay from New Jersey, and happy birthday to you.
Oh. Happy birthday.
And so I just want to also let everyone know we're on a couple of different platforms. We're on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. So go ahead and like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff. Okay, so this is going to be a really, I think a lot of, I know a lot of great information, from Sister Nana, and I'm just going to go into just a little bit from what I, what I have on here. So Sister Nana Firman, she is she's worked with the World Wildlife Fund in her native Indonesia, directing the recovery efforts in the wake of the 2004 earthquake and tsunami. Then she came to the U.S. and she initiated the Green Masjid project for ISNA, so for the Islamic Society of North America. She developed a sustainable city initiative, which also engaged with Muslim leaders. And then she was named, which is really awesome, named a 2015 White House champion of change for climate faith by former U.S. President Barack Obama. And I just want to jump back a little bit because in 2009, that's important too. That's actually when you started your training in Melbourne, Australia, to become a change leader. So that's really what puts you on that path to right. Where we're at now. So which leads you up where you're actually in 2020 has been honored by former U.S. Vice President Al Gore for the 2020 Climate Reality Green Ring Award, and so that is for leaders in the climate reality area. So Sister Nana, she lives in California with her husband, Brother Jamal, and so I am going to send it to you because, again, I want you to, let us know who you are and, give us a definition of what you do. So when we talk, climate change, what exactly is climate change?
Yeah, so actually I started it as, I don't even have a background on environment or climate change. My background, my academic background is actually, I did my undergraduate in industrial design and my master in urban design. So I'm originally from Indonesia, like you said, but I did my college in the US, in the East Coast, in fact, Connecticut and then New York. So, but then when I finished my study, I went back home and becoming, planner, city designer. So I was designing cities and planning cities, throughout Indonesia. And I realized that Indonesia is known as the ring of fire because we are on the 3 plates, of the earth. So there's, earthquake everywhere. And I just realized that, knowing this knowledge is very important on my work. So I was with a team of geologists at that time on my, my work of designing cities. And then in the middle of that, there's a tsunami, the earthquake and tsunami happened in Aceh, in the northern part of Sumatra in Indonesia. I think the whole world knows about that. That's a big one at the end of 2004. So I was called by the World Wildlife Fund to help out on the green recovery process. So because the World Wildlife Fund is the biggest conservation environmental organization, so they wanted to make sure that all the reconstruction, the rehabilitation, the recovery was done on a sustainable way. So I thought, yes, okay. So, I was there leading this process. It's called Green Reconstruction Program. But then I was having a problem with, communicating this, sustainability, conserving the environment to the communities. And I was frustrated because, but it was understandable because the communities lost everything. A lot of people actually lost their whole family because of the disaster. And then they lost their house, it's just devastated. And then they said to me, why you're asking us to care about the environment, to, planting trees? We just lost our whole family. We lost our homes. We lost our lives. And then I was frustrated. How am I going to communicate this? So about a year, I was kind of, back and forth. I couldn't find what is the right narratives. And then a friend of mine told me why don't you talk with the people from the Islamic teaching? So the people in Aceh is a very devout Muslim, the region. So I was what? From the Islamic teaching? How do you on what? So I went back to the Quran, the Sunnah, the Hadith, and I found a lot. I found so many teachings. So I started to kind of explore that and use that on my, communication with the people. And suddenly the response is completely different. They're okay, we will do that because that's from Islam. Yeah. Okay, we'll so they jumped to my program and I was also amazed because that's also my kind of newfound. Before it's okay, sustainable cities. That's what I was going to create without even knowing that what is the Islamic teaching on that. So I was on that so that's my kind of what is that the class, not the class, but the interconnected between my passion on the sustainability and Islam. So, and then moving along in 2007, I think we hosted the United Nations Climate Convention in Bali in Indonesia. So there's a lot towards that. There's a lot of preparation And I think 2006, Al Gore also released his first film about the inconvenient truth. So that's, I was like, oh my goodness, if we don't take care of this, like our environment, and we don't care about what's gonna happen on the future, then we're going to lose everything. So there's a lot of hype at that time towards the 2007 in Indonesia about the climate change. And so I was, starting to kind of like talk more about sustainable city at that time as part of the solution. And then I was, like you said, in 2009, I was selected to be trained by Mr. Gore at that time in Melbourne, Australia. So from then on, I was just like, get like all this engaged with climate. And also I bring the Islamic teaching from that, which is like the unique thing, because of course people get it, like, like the science and, like all the policy, but sometimes science and policy doesn't move people.
Right.
Like, all the data. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a beautiful hadith around that, a Bukhari hadith that Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam said that if a Muslim plants a tree or a seed, and a human eats from that a human or an animal eats from that seed, then they are given the reward of that in charity. And so that's really beautiful when you think about that, because that's talking about sustaining and regeneration. Exactly. And then also that is like Sadaqah Jariyah, right? And so that is something that is just going to be in your reward ongoing and ongoing. So that's a very beautiful hadith, I thought, and that I think that would relate to a lot of us as Muslims.
Yes, and like it's interesting that you mentioned that. That's exactly the hadith that I brought in with the people when I was doing my program, the Green Reconstruction, and also another hadith about planting trees. That even if tomorrow is Yaumul Qiyamah, the end of the day, the end of the world, if you have seedling in your hand, the Prophet said, plant it. That is hope.
Wow.
Like even in the devastation, like you're devastated, it's like the end of the world, everything, but you still plant the trees, plant the seedling.
Right.
That's a hope. And then like, and the hadith that you mentioned, that whatever you plant, if the human or animal benefits from what you plant, then like it's considered Sadaqah Jariyah. And when you plant the trees, it's going to be beneficial, because even if it's not having fruits, because tree produce oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide.
Right.
So there's always going to be like the living being is going to be beneficial from the tree that you plant.
Right. And so in addition to food, it gives you life, just gives you air. So it's so beautiful. So climate change, give us a layman's, and to me, I'll say it's any change in something that abnormal change in a particular region that's going to cause problems in that region. So the issue may be temperature, of course, or rainfall. And so give us your definition as a
so climate change is actually the like the extreme weather events that happens that is not normal anymore, because like our Earth has a pattern of weather that it goes like like every year the same way, but then because of it's now there's an extreme weather event that somehow the system is confused, so we cannot predict anymore what's gonna happen, like when is the rain season, like cold season, hot season. So why is that happening like that? So like it's actually created by the accumulation of the carbon dioxide emission. Of course, all our activities, as living being, we are producing carbon dioxide from our just like regular activity. However, the last 200 years, basically after the Industrial Revolution in the Western world, there's more and more carbon dioxide being produced and released and emitted into our like our atmosphere. where is it coming from? Like mostly it's from the energy, the forest, the fossil fuels that we use for our industrial, like industrial activities. So that's like, like the accumulation of our carbon emission that we release to our, on around the earth. That's like make it like harder and harder. So our earth has this blanket, a gas that we call greenhouse gases, which is like, like a several kind of gases that like compose this greenhouse gases. But 75% of those greenhouse gases is carbon dioxide gas. So it's supposed to be the blanket to keep our earth warm, because otherwise without that blanket, it's going to be too cold. Like, but the blanket is just have to be enough. However, because our activities that produce using the fossil fuel, like just, like expansive, like just like humongously, we produce more and more carbon dioxide to our atmosphere that is accumulated in the blanket that actually covering like closer our earth, that makes it like hotter, hotter and hotter.
Yes.
And we talked about tree just earlier. Tree is, besides they produce oxygen, they absorb carbon dioxide. So the only living being that Allah created in this earth that can absorb carbon dioxide is trees. But at the same time, in the name of development, all the trees are being cut out. We cut our forest on this earth. So it absorbs, like the one that can absorb the carbon dioxide is no longer there, while at the same time we produce more carbon dioxide. So it's getting hotter, like our earth. That's why it's called global warming. So it's warming the earth temperature. That way the weather pattern is shifting, and it's unpredicted anymore. That's why it's called climate change. Now we don't even use the word climate change so much. We call it climate crisis, because we want to have psychologically that, like we are in the emergency.
We need to move.
Yes, yeah. Because like if it's changed, like psychologically, people like, climate is always change. But when you say like climate crisis, we are in crisis right now.
Right. And climate change doesn't really dictate whether it's good or bad, right? Because it could be climate change could be, okay, it's changing for the best. Or so the natural crisis puts it, has a little bit of more tone to it.
Right.
So we talked a little bit about the earth. And I wanted to kind of talk about inequalities and climate crisis. And I'm going to say this. So Nelson Mandela, who, again, his anniversary of his death is today, but he actually said that as long as there's poverty and injustice and gross inequities or inequality, if it persists in our world, that none of us can rest, right? So if this gross inequality is happening, none of us will be able to rest. And it got me to thinking about our native people, our native Indians, our native nations, and how, they are so in tune to the earth, and they're so in tune to, what the earth is saying, how it operates. And so there's a strong inequality with that nation, right? So there are, the systems that, that they use to survive, the trees or the waterways. There are situations with those. And of course, the movement of the people from different lands. And so can you talk a little bit about inequalities, and are there processes or programs that looks to kind of equalize that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's very the equality is very alarming, because if we talk about climate change, it's also relate to like how natural resources is being, it's being taken. And if we look at the like most of the native, native or indigenous people around the world, they live like very closely with the earth. We call them like earth protectors, water protectors, forest protectors, like whatever protectors in a, like in a natural way. So they live like very, very, very close to the earth, and they don't like, take things from the earth like beyond the earth can replenish itself. So, for example, if they take the tree, they cut the tree, they're not going to cut the tree, just cut the whole thing, and then like it's there's no way for the tree to replenish. So they always think like, for Native American, I really like this Native American like principles, that you think about 7 generations before you and 7 generations after you. So that is a sustainability, because when you think about your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-grandchildren, you're not going to destroy things because you're thinking about them. So those are the principles that many indigenous and native, like native peoples around the world share. And however, with this, like, the modern development, we have to take all the time, and then like not giving any time for nature to replenish. And like the ironic thing is like, most of the people who didn't even take these natural resources, and like what I call like just ecological degradation, climate crisis, just like ruin the climate system, they're the one who actually bear the brunt of the consequences. And whereas they're not even like contributing on that. So if we see like most of the people who live in the tropics region or in the southern hemisphere are the one who are bearing the brunt of the consequences of the climate issues now. Like, for example, the people in the Pacific Islands, like, with climate change, we see that there's going to be sea level rise in like all those, like the small island communities and nations in the Pacific, for example. Just for example, like 1 meter of the, so like 1 meter is about what, 3 feet, like raise of water, they're already like lost their homes, because they're very like, they're living in the lowland with the surface of the ocean. So, but they're not the one who's like contributing on this, because they're what we also have another name for that. It's like the ecological footprint. Their ecological footprint is very, very small, but yet they're the one who's like bearing the brunt of that. And also like here in the US, Native American is the one who bear the brunt of that, because there's a lot of their native land and sacred land that is being taken for like for this fracking, like trying to resource the fossil fuel, like going through their river, the water system, and then polluting their river, and then that's a sacred land and a sacred water, and then the land also the sacred land. So they're the one who's like bearing the brunt of the consequences. And when something happened, they're the one who's the first one that suffer. So so that is the inequalities of that happen. That's why I always call that environmental issue, climate issue is about justice issue.
Absolutely.
It's not just about like, like science and everything, but it's about justice issue.
Right. Absolutely. Which leads me to, because we could talk about this all day, and I know that, wow. Which leads me to our current government. Okay. So we know that, and I'm talking to the U.S. government, right? So, where there's this narrative that, this is fake, this is not real. we know that former President Obama signed the Paris Agreement in 2016, and then Trump pulled us out of it. So then I'm happy to see that Biden, one of his 2050 plans is that he's going to again re-sign that agreement, and then also he does have some ambitious goals, right, to be carbon kind of carbon free and some other. So give me your take on this current administration, and then what do you think as far as Biden? Do you are there other things that he should work on to move us in the right direction?
Yeah, I think I'm glad that the US is going to come back to the Paris Agreement, because just to get into that Paris Agreement in 2015, it took a long time, like 20 years or so. It was signed by 196 countries, or 197. I don't remember the exact number, but it's almost 200 countries signing. It took a long time to negotiate, just to agree upon that this is climate change. We need to do something to change the situation. And from the beginning until 2015, it took a long time just to come to that agreement. So that's why in 2015 everybody celebrated, because that is an accomplishment. So when when this current administration said they're going to pull out from the agreement, it was like a shock to the rest of the world. Why? Because the US is also the major player on this. Because if we as the people who live in the US have to be very conscious about this. This is again about the justice issue. The US consists of 5% of the world population. However, we consume 25% of the world resources, including the energy resources. Wow. So we need to be conscious on that, so that's why the US have to be, to be on the table, if not leading the change.
Absolutely.
Because, it has to be make the change, because we cannot ask the country that don't, put all this, this problem to actually make the change, because they don't even really did any significant thing. But the US has to make the change, and the technology is here. Absolutely. And the US can do it. It just have to be there is a political will. That's a common kind of vision to do it. And I think we need to just because we live in the same earth. So no matter what happen in other part of the world is going to come to us too.
That's right.
Whether sooner or later, but it'll come to us because we are living in the same earth, the same system. So, and we share this earth together. So I think we need to emphasize this, that we share this earth together with the rest of the people in the world. So we need to make the change together. And then as the people in the US, as the US government, we need to lead the way to make the change. And it is doable now, because the technology is here. For example, the renewable energy is solar panel, for example. It's getting very cheap. I feel almost oh my God, solar panel getting very cheap now. It's nothing. In the 10 years ago, we couldn't even imagine that's gonna happen. It's still expensive. Now it's cheap. For example, in California, the new houses has to be with solar panel. Otherwise, they don't have. They don't get any permit to build house. So that kind of thing. And then if we're looking at automobile, right? The cars, there's hybrid electric car, and I'm sure with technology, everything is going to just move forward very fast. So the technology is here, so we don't have any excuse anymore. And I think that's from the technology side, but also I think from us, from individual, the government can make policy and all this, kind of like, you know, like regulation, but then it comes to us also individually.
Absolutely.
What can we do?
Absolutely.
As one person, one family, like, you know, one family.
Right. Yeah. And that's going to be my closing question to you. What can we do individually? I want to touch on COVID. So COVID, yeah. So COVID, has that changed the trajectory of climate, this climate crisis? And is that good or bad or in different trajectory? And then I remember at the beginning of COVID, there were, you know, people just weren't driving their cars. And so they were saying that, you know, the emissions is pretty clear out. And so again, but then towards the end of, I shouldn't say it's not the end, but currently they're saying now that, you know, it's kind of offset because people are more at home now. And so they're now, and so you have like, you know, containers and things like that. And so what has COVID-19 done for climate crisis?
Yeah, so like you said in the beginning of COVID, because of the lockdown around the world, suddenly like everybody's like, you know, like having a break, like, you know, time out. Yeah. And so like, we see like a significant like pollution reduction, because in areas where very heavy pollution, like Los Angeles, for example, suddenly you can see clear sky. Wow. In New Delhi, clear sky. In Jakarta, where I'm from, clear sky. You know, all these cities that have very heavy smoke and pollution, suddenly it's clear because, you know, like obviously there's no activities because everybody just like stay home and, you know, like during the lockdown. So we thought it's like, oh wow, you know, it took COVID, like, you know, a tiny virus to actually makes us realize, you know, all this beauty. But then like we also realized that do we need to have COVID and lockdown for us to actually have this, you know, like clear sky, fresh air, like, you know, like all like, you know, more like kind of like just like appreciate the beauty of nature. Then yeah, so we see that we don't need like a COVID to tell us to like, you know, to have that, right? So, you know, like, but we also think that COVID is a reflection moment that what is really essential for us.
Absolutely.
At the time being. Absolutely. So I think like that's the essential that I'm going to focus on, like, you know, like for individual and family. So we should also look at how we consume things, our consumption habits, be it any consumption like food or any, you know, utensil, you know, like just amenities that we need, personal purchasing. Yes. So
I see the FedEx truck going around like all day long. I'm like,
yes.
Think about the packaging, the plastics, and everything that's coming from that. Wow.
Right. Yeah. So then, you know, like that's what I think, like first, like, you know, like people are familiar with 3R, reduce, reuse, recycle, right? But I always add one thing, at least like now it has like 5 R's. You can see in my Facebook, I have 7 or 8 R's, but I like the most important thing is like this other R that I always add before everything else is rethink. So we need to rethink what is really essential for us. What is really like important for us? Like, do I really need that? Like, you know, why really? So, and then also think, like, you know, during this lockdown, like, usually like when I need something or my husband needs something, we just like, okay, like, let's go to the store and get it. But because of lockdown, and then we like all this protocol of COVID, we really need to think like, what do we, like, if we go out, we need to get this, and this, everything, not like going back and forth. And so like, we're trying to be like more efficient.
Sure.
And also like, what do we really need? Do we need that or not?
Right.
Or we can live without that, you know? So that's like, you know, come to like our essential needs. What is our needs, not our want? I think like, you know, like, because we live in our wants instead of our needs. So I think we need to see like what is really essential. And also like during COVID, there's a lot of like family like stay at home together. I think we need to use that moment also. What is really like important in your life? Like, like your children are at home. Maybe if you live in a house with a backyard, try to like plant something, simple things like, like tomatoes, like anything, like, like little things, like ask your children to plant things with you. So it should be fun. I mean, like on that. So it's also like to teach the children to love nature, because when their finger, like hands, like get dirty with dirt and, and dig out, and then finding the worm in the soil and, all those things, it's fun for children, but then that's also like building their love and passion to nature. So like, so that's the reconnecting themselves to nature. I mean, like, especially for those of us who live in the cities, we don't live like in the middle of the forest or like, the river or something, but we can, create our own nature in our backyard, like, little things. Even people who live in apartment, I told them like, just, like find some, like little pots and then plant it, because then, like it's like, it's nice to have this connection with the earth. And then like, like if we can like grow our little food on our own and then like eat it, that's like feels, like so good.
That's beautiful.
Because you grow it, yes. And then that's also part of the sunnah, actually, like, because Allah said, like, it's best if you like, like you actually reap your own work, right? So you taste the food that you grow. So, like, and also that
you appreciate it.
And teach us to like more grateful to our creator, that, oh, this is how, like food is grown. And, like just looking at it like every day is like, wow, you see like the growing, and then when they have like the budding, like the flowers and then the fruits, you just like feel excited, and children love that.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So
I love how you put that. It's just, kind of taking a different look at, and of course, with COVID there, we're just all, tense. There's just a lot going on. But there is some positive in COVID. So I'm gonna we're at like 6:41. So I'm gonna actually bring Preacher in to he has a few questions.
Sure.
To come in. So Assalamualaikum, Preacher Moss.
Conversation, first of all. Sister Nana, I was thinking, a couple of years ago, I was involved with a client, NBA player, who were talking about water issues. He wanted to do a campaign about pure water. And so we got into this whole thing about pure water. What we found out was the massive shortage of water, the damage to aquifers, and how you have whole streams that are not available, the damage of dams and things like that. And I was like, this is amazing stuff. And this is a couple of years ago, before it was climate change. I call it climate concern. I pick up right where you pick up at 2004 with the tsunami of Banda Aceh.
Yes, yeah.
We did my group, Allah Made Me Funny, we did a benefit, DC Improv, for the tsunami victims.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that nobody was really talking about how much the climate affects that. And I would chime in with the thing you were talking about, Native Americans, as well as Satana. I just feel like when people are just not really connected to the land, that they're just not connected to creation.
Yeah.
The damage of not seeing fresh grass, or
right.
I was reading Elijah Muhammad's Eat to Live. Eat to Live.
Yeah.
And Eat to Live is basically it's a ecological cookbook.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Wow.
The emphasis on we need to grow our own food.
Right.
And this is back in the 50s, talking about, 40s, 50s, talking about the processed food, the process that these chickens go through, and how
right.
they're cluttered, and the emotional distress,
right,
to a food product.
Right.
And I'm like, it's so very, very tied to the land.
Right.
Native Americans. So a lot of what you say was just resonate. But I wanted to see if I can get you to talk about the aspect of climate change in regards to water supply.
Yeah, so water, that's another issue, that because of the the climate crisis. So, and the increase of the temperature on Earth. That is so the sources of there's a lot of droughts happening around the world.
Right.
So there's we're going to face this water scarcity. But then at the same time, because of this imbalance of climate, in other part of the world, we can have so much water, pouring rain that created, flash flood, flooding that we cannot even use the water. So again, I think I wanted to bring that the importance of trees. So tree is, I think we just need to study trees. Tree is so important, that not just producing this, oxygen and absorb carbon dioxide. Also with trees, they actually can hold water, right? Their roots. And then whenever you plant trees, that's just you're also harvesting water. So that means that we need to really take care of our forest system, because that's where our to ensure that we always have our water. So I have my father always say this, that he's always concerned about water, and he creates this kind of absorption well on our backyard back home in Jakarta. And as growing up, I always said why do you do that? Who cares? The water ran off. And he said, no, I don't want the water run off. I want the water to be absorbed back to the soil, to the earth, because he said he wants to make sure that the future generation will always have water. And of course, I didn't think about it. I was like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. When you're growing up, I was probably 12 or 13. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. But then that's the thing. That's you have to, when you think about water, it's for future generation also. Yes. You need to think because this water has to be absorbed back to the earth. So in order to absorb that, we need the trees to hold the water. So again, this system, right? The ecosystem, we need to really restore back our ecosystem, just like the Native American, the indigenous people. That's why they're taking care of their land, because their their lives and their livelihoods depends on that.
Yes.
But I wanted to highlight this in Islam, that the word ayat, right, in Arabic means the verses in the Quran. We all know that. But then ayat also means signs of God in nature. Yes. So just imagine if I say okay, I'm going to erase one ayat in the Quran, would you how is the reaction from Muslim around the world? Must be enraged, right? Wow, how dare you, right? But how come we don't have the same rage when one species extinct from the face of the planet because of this degradation? That is one ayat of God.
Wow.
That is
one ayat of Allah.
True. Yes.
Yeah. So I always emphasize that, and people just whenever I mention that, they're like, oh, I've never thought about that. That's why we need to reconnect ourselves back to nature, because that's how, when we appreciate nature, that's how we are being grateful to the Creator. Otherwise, it's it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So
yeah. It's when I travel around the country and I see new construction, I just have a heavy sigh,
yes.
Just the absence or there's no ground soil to
Right.
even hold the water now. And
Yes.
so we'll get the Hurricane Harveys and Hurricane Ike down in Houston, and we'll get these superstorms and things like that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Superstorm. Like, even storm has a superstorm nowadays. It's, yeah. And speaking about soil and water, soil is a living thing. Like, we need to see that soil is a living thing. It's not a dead thing. Like, it's a living thing. That's what we call Mother Earth, right? Like in this program, Mother Earth is a living. It's a living, like, it's a growing also. So I think we need to really reflect on that, each of us.
Well, I'm going to pull out Satana, ask your questions, and I'll go back into my cubby hole.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, Preacher Moss.
So I do want to just pop up some of the comments. So Sister Mary Moss, and this is Preacher's mom, she said, "Thank you, Sister Sultana, for a special guest, Sister Firman, who covered climate crisis in a realistic way to which we all can relate, and that is wonderful."
Thank you.
Sister Salima said, "Okay, she didn't know that. I'm not sure which point." Alhamdulillah, and thank you, Sultana and Nana. This was very informative. Alhamdulillah. Brother Johnny Thomas, who's one of the regulars, he said, "Good analogy." Oh, and Sister Aika, who's actually from Indonesia, she's actually one of our regulars. And I know it's super early there this morning, so thank you for joining, Sister Aika. She said, "Thank you for the information, Sister Nana. By the way, nice to meet you here." Alhamdulillah.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
So we are, it's 30-minute show, but this was so interesting. Like there's so many areas that we can cover. So I'm going to give you the last word. So what are a few things that, as a layperson, what can I do, or what can we do to help this climate crisis?
Yeah. So what can we do? We can start from ourselves and our family. So, for example, like, when we purchase something, we need to think, do I need that? Or, or I can live with that. And then if we have to purchase it, please look up, like, who's producing that? Like, what kind of company that they're, like, producing. Like nowadays we have like what all, like, smartphone, we can do the research very, like very fast. So like take a responsibility. So not just like, okay, I'm just going to purchase it, I don't care, so like, purchase, if we have to purchase from like, like a company that is responsible. And like, during this COVID especially, I think it forced us to support our local, like, like mom and pop shops. So then to ensure that the economy is still going, and they're, like, because they're around in our area, so then we don't have to travel that far, so we're not, like contributing to all this, pollution again. So then also at the same time, it's better to support the local economy. And of course, like, if we can purchase, like the local food, like organic, hopefully, and just consume it in season. So because the prophet, I always like say this, as sometimes like with children, it's like jokingly, I said, like, well, the prophet never ate any, like anything that is imported. So it's always local, local food, local milk, nothing that is like imported from like somewhere else, that, or like, this is winter, but we want to eat, fruits that is like in the summertime. Right. So like, like, so that's the thing, like, like knowing like where we are, and just like be cautious, because whatever we do, whatever we purchase, whatever we consume is going to have like the consequences, and we don't want the biggest consequences in, like the negative consequences on this earth. We want the positive consequences, because when we die, we want to leave this earth with all good things, good deeds, So we don't want the bad deeds. So I always say, like, if I'm destroying this earth, that's like my bad deed. So I don't need that.
Right. Alhamdulillah. Sister Nana, thank you so much. This was such
pleasure.
A beautiful, beautiful conversation. I wish we had time to, because I still have notes on other areas I wanted to cover, but because of time, we just didn't get to it. But Sister Nana Firman, you can reach her Facebook at nana.firman. On IG, it's Nana Firman. And so, reach out to her for questions. But thank you. Inshallah, we can have you back again.
Yes, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. I was like so surprised that I'm being like invited to Freaking Boss Show.
I was like, yeah.
Thank you, Sister Sultana, for inviting me.
You're absolutely welcome, and thank you for attending. And thank everyone else. Thank you for our guests for attending. And again, like, share, subscribe, come back daily. We are here at the same time every day, at the same station, inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.